Hello everyone. My name is Sumit and I will be your taxation lecturer for this semester. So, and as you know that besides me, you're gonna have another teacher who gonna teach you taxation, which is Mr. Tham. So Mr. Tham gonna give you tutorials for all the important outcomes for these modules. For me, I will try to focus more on the theoretical informations, theory-based information. I will also try to give you fundamental informations regarding the calculations. So I'll give you informations that how do we calculate the tax and important elements related to the tax estimations, and Mr. Tham will help you to calculate it. Alright, so I'll give you fundamental informations, all the kinds of important topics for this this module. Alright, today is the introductions to the taxation. So we're going to study about the basic information, very basics. So in this lecture, we're not going to discuss anything calculations. Alright, so hopefully from the next session, next week, we're going to discuss more about the calculations. Besides this video, I will also give you the, I will also try to arrange Zoom sessions with you on this Wednesday afternoon. And in this Zoom session, we will discuss maybe about the assessment method, means midterm exam or assignments or final exam, some basic information about your assessment method for this taxation module. Besides that, I will highly recommend you to watch this video before you join the Zoom meeting. All right, and then of course you can raise the questions, whatever questions you have regarding this topic or regarding this taxation module. All right, so let's start with the first thing, the objective of taxation. All right. So first learning outcome is objective of taxation. Right? Okay. What is the objective of taxation? Before we discuss the objective of taxation, we need to understand what is the meaning of taxation system. Right? I hope you all know the tax. If you do not know, I'll give you quick ideas of the tax. Tax is the amount of money that government generate from the people. So tax also considered as a revenue for the governments that government collect from the people, right? In other words, we can say that tax is the amount of money that we have to pay to governments, right? So now the question is, everybody has to pay tax? Technically, yes, everybody has to pay tax. So you will say that if I am not making money, do I have to pay tax? So the answer is that yes, you have to pay tax, but of course, you don't have to pay income tax. You have to pay some other taxes, all right, that we will discuss later in this topic, all right? So let's start with the first learning outcome, which is the objective of taxation. What are the objective of taxation? Right? What is the main purpose or the reason behind to pay tax by the taxpayer or the tax collected by the government? What are the reasons to do that? Right? The first thing is provision for public goods and services. The objective of the tax collection is to provide some other kinds of services to all kinds of people, no matter that people are poor or rich, right? So government collect tax from the people in order to provide them some kinds of product or some kinds of services, all right? Like as I can give you a quick example of product and the services, such as any kinds of services that we are taking. For example, the services about the good roads, parks, probably hospitals, right? Probably the less payment treatment in the hospital or the free treatment, medical treatment. That's also happened due to the taxes that we have to pay different kinds of. Another example is that, like as nowadays there is a coronavirus in Vietnam, of course around the world too, but in Vietnam, government is providing the free treatment to the people who are affected or who are kind of suspected patients for the coronavirus. Right? So government is giving them free treatment. Right? So where that money come from? Of course, the government collect that money from the people, right? Who pay tax, like as you and me, right? So that's the mainly objective of, one of the important objective of tax is to provide some kinds of goods and services to the people. Depends what kind of services, all right? Next is the redistribution of income and wealth. Now, redistribution, what does it mean, redistribution? What is the method to take money from rich people and spread it money out to the poor people? Right? That things could be possible through the tax payments. So what government does? Government collect the tax. Of course, government collect tax from the all kinds of people, not just only rich people, but of course, because of their high income, which is a progressive tax system, they are more likely to pay high tax compared to the people who are making less money. All right. So government is collecting tax from the rich people, and government is giving that money back to the poor people. But of course, government is not giving them directly cash. Maybe cash, but it depends. But government mainly objective is to provide some kinds of economic benefits to the people who are income level or financially, they are not really financially sound, right? Providing benefits to those kinds of people. Like as in Vietnam, if the people are below the poverty line, we call them people under the poverty, we call PPL, below poverty line. So the people who comes under below poverty line, government will give them some kinds of financial support, financial aids. Where that money come from? Of course, that money come through the tax that we are paying to the government, right? Other examples could be the park, like I gave you before. Government collect tax from the residents, the people who are living in their country, and government will spend that money equally to all kinds of people, like as by building a park. So in that park, every kinds of person can go to the park, no matter rich or the poor person. All right. So that's mainly another important objective of tax collection. Next is the promotion of social and economic welfare. promotion of social economic welfare. Again, any kinds of economic benefits, any kinds of benefits that government more likely to pay to their societies, to their people, that things could be happening only through the taxation, through the tax collection, no matter what kind of benefits paid for their residents, no matter it's a transportation services, no matter it's a medical services, no matter it's education services, depends, right? So that things possible only through the taxation system. Besides all these kinds of thing, we also have economic stability. Economic stability means there is a consistent growth in the country's economy, and of course, if any countries must have consistent growth, that country more likely to have some kinds of reserves, some kinds of surplus, and that kinds of reserves and surplus could be possible through the tax collections. The government collect from their people for the various reasons. Right? So if government has some kinds of surplus, or government has some kinds of capital reserves, with the help of that reserves, government can support their country's economy. Government can find the way that help government, that country to improve their GDP, and that thing could be possible only through the tax collections. Right. So these are the mainly common reasons for the tax payments that government more likely to collect from the people. But of course, there are some other reasons, but we focus mainly on these kinds of objective related to the tax collections. Right. Now we move on to the second learning outcome. Second learning outcome is types of taxes. How many types of taxes we have? Right? There are two types of tax we have. Direct tax and indirect tax. So direct taxes are those taxes that we directly pay to government, all right, without paying to someone else who helps us to pay to the government. So we directly give it to the government, so the taxpayer to the tax collector, all right, or the government. And indirect tax, through someone we are paying tax to the governments. Why? Because directly payment to the government is not possible. All right. I repeat, in some kinds of taxes, we call them indirect tax, the payments made to the government directly not possible. All right. So we need someone or someone involved. All right. Someone must involve to pay tax to the governments, because we are not directly dealing with the governments, we're dealing with someone else, and then someone else will collect tax on behalf of government and then give it to the government's account. All right. So now, direct taxes. So there are three types of direct taxes we have, and these three types you're gonna study in this module. First one is income tax. Right. Second one is corporation tax. And the third one is capital gain tax. Right. Indirect tax. Indirect tax, we have VAT, which stands for value added tax, right? And another one is import and export tax, right? Import and export tax. So let's start with the income tax. Income tax is the tax which is paid by individual, all right? Income tax is the income tax that paid by individual, all right? Any kinds of income that individual is making. So the best example for income tax is the tax on the salary. Like as for example, I work for university, and every month I receive a fixed depends some amount of salary every month, and whatever tax I pay on that salary, that's called income tax. But remember, income tax not only involve or salary. There are some other things also involved in income tax, such as rental income. So I have a house, I put house on the renting, and every month I receive a fixed amount of rent from the tenants. So I have to pay tax on that rent. So that's part of the income tax, all right? Another example is receive interest from the bank, all right? So I keep some money, some capital in my bank account, so every month bank will give me interest. So whatever interest I earn it, I have to pay tax on it, right? So that's called income tax. So amount of the tax paid by the individual who is providing services, who is in the contract, right? Who work according to contract, right? Work for contract, all right? So that's also part of the income tax. So now, corporation tax. Corporation tax is the tax which is paid by, of course, company, right? Paid by company, and you have to understand the definition of company. Company is a separate legal entity whose objective is to make money, or a separate legal entity with a group of people whose objective is to make money, called a corporation or a company. Or of course, under Company Act, the definition of corporation also explained. If you comes under the definition of the corporation, then that means you are a corporation and you're more likely to pay a corporation tax, right? Just keep in your mind that company pay tax on its profit. All right, company do not pay tax on the company pay tax on the net profit. Company do not pay tax on gross profit or the revenue. All right. So of course, sales. And you studying your some accounting or finance module. That sales minus cost of goods sold. We have a gross profit, and minus non-manufacturing cost. We have a net profit before. All right. And then after net profit, we have to deduct some kinds of interest. And after interest, whatever amount is left, we have to pay tax on that amount. All right. Okay. So that is the corporation tax. So you will study the calculation of income tax and corporation tax later in this module. So all these kind of taxes calculations you're gonna learn throughout this subject. All right. Next is the capital gain tax. Now, what is it? What kind of tax is it? So before capital gain tax estimation, we have to understand what is the meaning of capital gain. Capital gain is any kinds of gain that we generated by selling some kinds of capital assets. The profit, not income, all right? The profit we generate by selling some kinds of assets, all right? So that's called capital gain, and whatever tax we pay on it, that's called capital gain tax. So remember, if you have a capital assets and you are generating income from that capital assets, you will not pay capital gain tax. Like is the example. The example is rental income. All right, you have a house, you put that house on rent, and every month you will receive some kinds of rent. All right, so you will not pay capital gain tax on it. You will pay income tax that I described before. All right, and another example is that you have that assets, you have that house, and you sold the house. All right, after selling that house, you made some. All right, whatever profit you made it, now you will pay capital gain tax on that profit. All right, not income tax. So there is a difference between profit and income. So the very common difference, very major difference between income and the profit is that income is regular, but profit is irregular, because we do not sell house every day. All right, I mean assets, not as a profession. All right, we do not sell our assets every day. All right, so that's the ideas for the capital gain. All right. Tax on the gain of selling assets. Right? So these are the examples of income tax, corporation tax, and the capital gain tax. Right? So now we move on to the next, value added tax. So value added tax is the indirect tax. Of course, we do not pay that kind of tax directly to the governments. We go to the supermarkets, we go to some stores, we buy some product. After buying product, of course, we're gonna add some tax on it, right? And that tax seller do not put in his or her pockets. So that tax seller has to pay to the government. So seller gonna give you receipts. So in that receipts, you can see that how much money that you have paid it plus 10% on that money, right? Will be your total bill, right? But seller will keep amount which is excluding tax. The tax amount seller will pay to the government, all right, on behalf of you. Right? So that's kind of tax is an indirect tax, which means we cannot directly pay to the government. Why? Because we are buying product from the seller, and government asks seller to collect tax, all right, from the customers, all right. So that is the value added tax. But of course, value added tax has some kinds of exemptions. So that we will discuss later in this module. But the basic thing is that mostly we gonna pay value added tax on the man-made items, the items made by the humans. Right? Some items which are produced naturally, we are less likely to pay value added tax on that, such as the fruits and vegetables. Right? But it depends upon countries to countries, all right? So we will discuss later about Vietnam, in Vietnam, how we estimate the value-added tax. Next is the import-export tax. I think I don't have to speak much about import-export tax here. So of course, import tax, the tax we have to pay on the items that we import from the foreign countries, right? And export tax, the tax we have to pay the items that we are selling in the foreign country, right? Buy from foreign country, we have to pay tax, and export to foreign country, we have to pay tax. But of course, the tax rates for the import items and export items gonna be different, all right? So it depends what kind of items we gonna pay, and then government impose some kinds of specific tax rates from the specific kinds of products, such as the country which is famous for that particular product, like is Vietnam famous for coffee or rice or pepper or cashews or some kinds of seafoods. So the tax rate for all these kinds of items, of course export items, taxes are going to be different. All right, it varies Depends upon sector to sectors, depends upon product to product. Same thing happened to the import items. When we buy something from foreign countries, so we have to pay some kinds of taxes. So again, the taxes for all kinds of products not gonna be same. It depends what kind of product which is. For example, if we are buying some kind of automobiles, which means vehicles, motorbikes or cars, then we have to pay a large amount of tax on it. However, if we are buying some other product from foreign countries like as clothes and shoes, we're gonna pay different kinds of taxes, not that much high. So again, same like as export tax. In import tax rate gonna be different, depends upon product to product, right? So we will study later in this module, right? So that's basic ideas for the types of tax we have, right? Okay. So now the question is that everybody has to pay tax. Answer is yes. All right. Why? Depends what kind of tax. Of course, everybody don't have to pay maybe income tax, maybe corporation tax, or maybe capital gain tax, maybe import-export tax. But everybody has to pay that because everybody buy product and services from the different kinds of companies. All right. So that's why we have to pay tax for it. All right. So the question is, yes, everybody has to pay tax. But of course, everybody do not have to pay income tax or capital gain tax. But of course, if you are not making any kinds of income, then you don't have to pay income tax. Right? So that's the basic thing about types of taxes. Now we move on to the next learning outcome 3. So learning outcome 3 is about distribution of tax burden. Distribution of tax burden. The meaning of distribution of tax burden is what is the system that government implemented to collect tax. All right. So what does it mean? What is the system? What is the system means that the question is that everybody has to pay equal tax or people has to pay different tax. All right. It depends what kind of system your country implements, right? So which means there are 3 kinds of tax implementation system, right? Progressive, proportional, regressive, right? Progressive, and progressive, proportional, and regressive. Right? So let's start with the progressive. Progressive means government takes large tax rates or large tax amounts from higher income groups. It means that the people who comes under the higher income group are more likely to pay higher tax compared to the people who comes in the low income group. Alright, so which means there is a different tax rates for the high income group people. Alright, it depends. Alright, so which means under the under the progressive tax burden or tax system or tax collecting system, people gonna pay tax to the government on the basis of the threshold. Right? Threshold means if you comes under this category, so it means your income is from 0 to, let's say, $50,000, you're gonna pay 10% tax. $50,000 to, let's say, $200,000, you're gonna pay 200,000 above, you're gonna pay 50% tax. Right? So that's called the progressive system. If you come in the lower income threshold, you're going to pay less tax. If it comes under the higher income threshold, you're going to pay a high tax. So this kind of system called progressive tax system. All right. Next one is a proportional. Proportional means everybody gonna pay same amount of tax, no matter you are rich or you are poor. So in simple words, the example of proportional system is that tax rate is a fix. So let's say 10%. All right. No matter you are making a lot of money or you are making very less money, so you will pay proportional income tax. All right. Right. So another way to understand proportional tax is that like as VAT, value added tax. No matter you buy large amount within the country or buy the small amount of the thing, so you're gonna pay that kind of fixed tax rates. But anyway, we're talking about the income tax. All right. So proportional means pay same. Equally. So that's is the proportional tax burden, proportional tax system. All right. And regressive tax burden, regressive tax system means that lower income group people will pay high tax compared to the higher income group. Why? Because lower income group people more likely to take benefits from the government compared to the higher income group people. Right? But of course, the countries mostly likely to adopt the system is progressive. The majority of country, they are going to implement any kinds of tax system. Right? So government takes large tax proportion from the lower income groups, people. Right? So large from the lower and large from the higher. All right. So if you take the example of US, they implement US or Australia and I believe Vietnam too. They adopt progressive system of the tax burden. So 3 different kinds of progressive system categorizing in different kinds of countries. All right. So that's all about your learning outcome 3. Now we move on to the learning outcome 4. So until now we understand that it's really important for the people to pay tax because it's a law, all right? And we have a different kinds of tax payment system in the countries that we just discussed. So it's really important for government to implement fair tax system in the country, right? Like as progressive, considered as a fair tax system, right? But now, what is the meaning of fair tax system? What does it mean, fair? All right. So that thing we're gonna study in our learning outcome 4. So what are the principles of ideal tax system? Right? How we define that tax collection system or tax burden system is the fair. So with the help of the few principles, we're going to define what does it mean the fair tax collection system, right? Or the tax system that every government want to implement. All right. So what are the principles of that kind of perfect tax system? All right. Of course, there is always room for improvement. So that's why every time there is a revised version of the tax law. All right. But try your efforts to improve the tax collection or tax implementation process in the particular country, right? So the first thing is the simple. Which means whatever tax system we implement in our country, make sure it's simple, that people understand it, that it makes sense to the people. It's systematic, all right? It's not just a random implementation of the tax. It has a proper fundamentals, proper principles to implement that particular tax law or tax section or the tax rates. It must be simple, all right? So it means people can easily understand it. People can easily interpret that kind of tax system, all right? Second one is the tax system must be flexible, right? If the tax system is a flexible, that also considered as an ideal tax system. Now, what does it mean flexible here? Flexible means the tax law change as per the country economy change. All right? Change as per the country economy change. So that's the example of the progressive tax system. All right? So different tax rates will implement when the country economy move probably up or down. All right? So if if country GDP is in the more progressive way, so maybe government will impose more taxes on the people. But whereas if the country economy or country GDP is not really doing good, so government may not implement the high taxes on the people. All right. So it depends. All right. So it means that government can change the taxes as per the country economic situations change. So that's the example of the flexible tax system. Right? Administratively efficient. What does it mean? It means our administration system that we're going to study in our next learning outcome. I guess it's a learning outcome 5, administration system. So that administration system must be efficient, which means the way or the process of implementing or managing the tax system in the country should be good. All right. The way we are controlling, the way we are implementing different tax rates or law within the country. So that's the example of the administration system efficiently. All right. So it means we are not skipping or we are not missing any kinds of group of people. They are making more money, right? But they are paying the less tax, right? I mean, in the legal way, right? So that's the administrative system, the process of implementing tax. Not only implementing, of course, the collecting tax from the people. The administration system must be very good. Right? Next is neutral. Neutral. So make sure tax system should be neutral. All right. It should not favor some kinds of wealthy, rich, or big industries. All right. It should be favorable. So let's say I'm in the current government positions, right? So, and I know that I have some other kinds of business, probably me or my wife or my other family members, they have a specific kinds of business for the particular sector. So I should not give some kinds of exemptions to that particular sector because I have some kinds of personal interest in that particular sector. So I'm not supposed to do that, right? So that means the neutral. Right? So it should be neutral, it should be balanced, it should be fair for everybody who are generating income and paying tax. Right? So should not give kind of unfair advantage to some kinds of industries. Right? Unfair advantage. Right? Next one also relate to the neutral. Next is the equitable, right? So it means, in simple words, it should be equal for everybody. But equal doesn't mean that proportional tax system. No, it means it should be fair, right? It should be treat everybody equally, all right? Treat people not on the behalf of the personal interest, not on the behalf of some kinds of unethical things. Right? We should treat everybody equally, right? with the help of integrity. Right? So that's the principles that we're more likely to know in order to understand what is the meaning of the idle tax system or the fair tax system within the country. Now we move on to the next learning outcome. Number 5, which is administration system, or how we administrate, how we implement our tax collection. What is the process or the procedure to collect the tax within that country? I will give you a very basic one, all right, but it doesn't mean that this system is for strictly implemented in every country, but it's just very basic procedure, or the people or the department involved, or official bodies involved in that, government bodies involved in that particular procedure. It's just a basic one, right? So, tax administration. Administrative, all right? So, the first is the treasury. The second one is the next is we have regions. Okay, so first of all, we have a treasurer or treasury. Right? Treasurer is responsible for collecting all kinds of taxes. So whatever revenue we are generating through the, within the countries, that revenue goes to the treasury. Right. So I'll write down here, tax collection. And under treasury, there is a Board of Inland Revenue. So Board of Inland Revenue is responsible for, of course, tax collection and tax implementation. And of course, tax collection. And then whatever tax is collected as revenue will transfer to the treasury. All right. Now, how that Board of Inland Revenue implements a particular tax system within the country? All right. How they do that? So the way to do that is that, of course, the country is divided into the region: north, east, west, south. All right. And each of the regions has a district, correct? Of course, in regions we have a district. And in each district, there is a sub-inspector. That sub-inspector is responsible for implementation and the collections of the particular tax. So we have a tax departments, tax offices in every district, all right? So that tax department is responsible for that particular district or particular ward, mainly the district, because ward is too small, right? And under there is a sub-inspectors, there is a commissioners. Now what is the role of commissioner here, tax commissioner? So the role of tax commissioner to solve any kinds of issues related to the taxes, right? So as you can see, there are two kinds of tax commissioners we have. One is the general tax commissioner and the special tax commissioner. Now what's the difference between general and the special? So the difference is in the general tax commissioner is responsible to solve any kinds of issues related to the tax, but that issues are minor issues, right? Minor issues includes like as the small penalties on the people for late tax return. So now I will explain you what does it mean tax return later. So if any kinds of taxpayer, they do not pay tax or submit tax file or tax return on time, so commissioner will impose particular penalties on that kind of person, all right? Or another example is that the people taking some kinds of mistakes in filing a tax return, and of course commissioner will impose particular fine on those kind of people. So it's kind of very minor issues related to the tax that will be solved by the general commissioner, right? Now special commissioner. Special commissioner, basically the person who is involved in the solve any kinds of major tax issues, like as any corporations or any kinds of person has he or she or companies is liable to pay tax, but the company or individual trying to steal tax from the governments, right? Finding the illegal way to tax steal from the government, all right? So that's kind of issues will be solved by the commissioners, right? So remember, the general commissioner is a mainly part-time person, right? He or she doesn't really work full-time in that kind of issues. However, in the special commissioner, of course, is involved in a full-time work or full-time positions to solve that kind of major issues related to the tax, right? It's basically a tax administrative system that is a very common way to understand that how things happen or implement in the country related to the tax, right? Now we move on to the sixth. Before we move on to sixth, I think I should discuss about tax return. Tax return basically tax claim, all right? I will come to this tax return in the next topic 2, when we discuss about the income tax, but I give you very quick ideas about tax file or tax return because I explained you about tax return things in the general commissioner. Tax return basically, we know that we normally pay tax to the government. I'm talking about income tax every month because we are generating income monthly, and then we pay tax to the governments, and at the end of the year we're gonna claim some tax back from the government. Why is happen? I mean, what is that? The thing is that government gonna give us some kinds of benefits, some kinds of exemptions, right? Means the tax we are paying to the governments, we can claim that money back from the government by filling a form. So that's filling a form is called a tax return. Of course, depends, but for every kinds of business, it's important to file a tax return. But for individual, it's may not important. Depends. It depends upon every monthly income that you are generating, and you are able to recover or return some money back from the government because government is giving us some kinds of benefits, right? So we will discuss later these points in our topic 2, all right? So that's all about learning outcome 5. So now we move on to the last learning outcome, parties involved, right? Parties involved in the tax payments. Which means how many parties involved in a tax payment system, right? Means when people pay tax. So there are, we can say that triangular of tax payments. So we have three parties involved in these kinds of tax payment system, right? Government, you know that. Government impose tax to the taxpayer, right? Now who is a taxpayer? Taxpayer is a person who is liable for paying tax to the government, right? But of course governments, we have a kind of taxes that government do not directly collect from the people, right? Or people do not actually they are kinds of direct tax, but people are not directly paid to the government, or people not kinds of people are not claiming directly to the government, right? So now what does it mean as I write here, tax practitioner? Now what does it mean, tax practitioner? Tax practitioner is a person, this could be a lawyer or could be an accountant, is a person who help taxpayer to file a tax return, to submit a tax return, alright? And this taxpayer also a person that help government to collect tax from the people, alright? So taxpayer file tax return, they submit tax return through the tax practitioner, and then tax practitioner of course submit that to the government, or taxpayer pay to the tax practitioner and tax practitioner submit the tax to the government. So it's this kind of agent who help to file a tax return. So let's say for example I am engineer by profession and I'm paying tax every month. So at the end of the year, I feel that I can claim some money back from the government because government is giving some kinds of benefits to the engineers related to his or her profession. So I'm gonna submit a file return, right, tax return, right? So, but I have no knowledge about the tax because by profession I'm an engineer. I never study about tax and I have no knowledge. How can I submit my file and what documents required to submit the tax file to the government? So what I will do, I will contact to the tax practitioner. And tax practitioner, they are professional people. As I said, that they are maybe accountant or maybe lawyer. They have a detailed knowledge about that particular tax group people or tax categories. So they help taxpayer to submit tax return to the government. So that taxpayer could be individual, that taxpayer could be a corporation, could be a company. So company, they of course, business or companies, they have to file a tax return at the end of the year to the government, alright? So how these companies and business can do that? Of course, they appoint some kinds of taxpayer, right? And taxpayer can help them to submit a file return to the government. So that's the important role of the taxpayer, right? So now the question is, what is a tax period? So tax period is normally in Vietnam is a 12 months. But beside that, in Vietnam there is no any specific time period. So it depends what kind of accounting year or financial year company follows. It could be January to December, it could be July to June, or it could be April to March. It depends what kind of year is it. So whatever year is you are following, follow that year. So you have a particular deadline to submit a file return. So let's say if financial year ends, or tax year or your financial year ends 31st of December, so you have a maximum 3 months to submit your tax file return. So in these 3 months, so you have enough time to prepare records, you have enough time to contact or choose the tax practitioner, and then tax practitioner will help you to sort of help you to all these kind of tax payments issues, right? But of course, if you do not pay that tax on time to the government, then of course you're going to have some kinds of penalties that probably charged by the general commissioners that I mentioned you before, right? So that's all about your topic 1, right? So we finished topic 1 here, and in our this Wednesday, so which is I guess 18. Yeah, this Wednesday is 18. So on 18th of March, we're gonna have a Zoom session with you. I will send you an invitation letter, and through that Zoom session, you can raise any questions, whatever questions you have regarding this topic 1, and then of course I will talk something further, something more about tax system. All right. In addition, on this Wednesday, we will also discuss about your assessment method. Right? How I will give you marks. All right. What inside the assessment method, written exam or assignments or quizzes or final exams and so on. All right. So. One more thing, I forgot to write my email address. So I'm writing my email address. If you have any question regarding this topic 1, please feel free to send me email. All right? So that's my email, 36.sumit@gmail.com. So whenever you send me any email, right, please in your email subject, please write UEL_tax. Right? Please write these subject titles in your. You can understand which university you are from, and then you can write down your question. All right. So that's all about your topic 1. So we stop here. So I'll see you on this Wednesday. Okay. Thank you.